What's up, everyone? It's been an eventful week in Washington. From infrastructure to democracy reform, there have been a lot of moving pieces. Some good, some not as much. Let's talk about it. My name is Pablo, and this is Indivisible Weekly. Thanks for joining us. Now, let's start with the bad. As you might have seen, the Senate blew right past a big deadline for democracy this week. Despite nonstop efforts from Majority Leader Schumer, many Senate Democrats, and democracy activists across the country, Republicans once again voted against bringing the For the People Act to the floor, objecting to any consideration of the bill. Separately, they also blocked votes on two key measures that would ban partisan gerrymandering and help fix our broken campaign finance system. Now, none of this is good. I mean, we've been saying for months that the Senate needed to pass the For the People Act before the August recess, in order for key provisions of the bill to go into effect in time for the 2022 election. Now, I'm gonna pause real quick to make one thing very clear. This is not the end of the fight to save our democracy, not by a long shot. We can still overcome the filibuster, and we can still pass S1 this year. But it's important to recognize that this months-long legislative delay is starting to have real-world consequences. For more on this, here's a quick update on where things stand on democracy reform from our co-founder and co-executive director, Ezra Levin.
Quick update on the For the People Act. There are three takeaways from what happened this week when the Senate tried and failed to pass the For the People Act before going out on August recess. Now, this bill missed the deadline that we set for it, and that means that the anti-gerrymandering provisions, they're going to be weaker. It sucks. I hate it, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a setback. This is worse. It would have been better for them to pass it. But that doesn't mean the game's over. The For the People Act, if it is passed in September, is still going to have an enormous impact. It will roll back the voter suppression laws that have been passed in Georgia, in Arizona, in Florida, that are being considered in Texas. It'll implement automatic voter registration and election security provisions. It'll get money out of politics, increase transparency in our campaign finance system. It'll do a ton of good. And I'm encouraged that the Senate Majority Leader will bring this up first thing when the Senate comes back. Second thing we got to ask ourselves, though, is who prevented us from getting this done? And the answer is not just Sinema and Manchin. Sure, they have been obstacles, but we know that other senators have been playing a role behind closed doors to prevent any discussion of reform of the filibuster. And we need all Democratic senators on board with this. So one of our tasks is to get all of our senators to be out there publicly saying we got to reform the filibuster to pass the For the People Act. But it's not just our senators who have been obstacles here. I'm sorry to say it, but President Biden has not thrown his full weight into this fight. He's our star player. We worked our butts off to get him into office, but he has really not done much for the democracy fight. He's done a ton for the infrastructure fight, not a ton for the democracy fight. Now, there have been representatives out there like Mondaire Jones who have been calling for him publicly to really get in the game. And if your representative, if your senator, if your state representative, if your state senator isn't calling on the president to help lead on this democracy fight, now's the time to get them on board. And this brings me to the last question, which is what can we actually do? We've been fighting this fight for 6 months and we haven't won yet. And look, I know we haven't won yet, and I'm angry about that. I'm frustrated about that. But that does not mean that we can't win, and it doesn't mean that there's not a pathway through our actions that gets us to a win. I have seen the impact on the calls, on the marches, on the events, on the cross-movement campaigns that we've been running. They are feeling the heat. That is how we have gotten this far. If we were not out there, you would not see the Senate Majority Leader saying failure is not an option. You would not see the Senate prioritizing it. The reason why they are where they are now is because we've pushed them there, and we've just got to push a little harder. It is an honor to be in this fight with you. I'm going to post a 2,000-word essay that I've written on the status of events where you can read more into this if you are interested. But please, take a breather, lick our wounds, have a drink, watch some Ted Lasso, it's great, and then rejoin this fight, because we are still in this to win this, and I believe that we will. I'll see you out in the streets.
Seriously, watch Ted Lasso. No, but for real, this is not over. This week was a setback, yes, an unfortunate delay that we did everything we could to avoid. But we'll keep fighting, because that's what this movement does, and because our democracy is worth it. Now, if you want to learn more about the current state of play on the For the People Act and what you can do to stay in the fight, Check out Ezra's Medium post in the description below for a detailed explanation of where things stand right now. Now, this is Congress, where things tend to either never happen at all or happen all at the same time. So naturally, democracy reform was not the only big thing moving this week. This was also the week when the Senate finally passed the bipartisan infrastructure package, the trillion-dollar legislation that they'd been negotiating with the White House for months. Now, as we've said before, the bipartisan infrastructure deal is only half the story. Less than that, really, because the truth is, it doesn't do nearly enough to provide a real recovery for people and for the planet that we live in. The good news is we can pass a bold, inclusive recovery, one that includes expanded healthcare, universal childcare, a pathway to citizenship for all immigrants, and massive investments in housing, climate, and the care economy. And this week, Senate Democrats took a big step in that direction, passing a budget resolution that sets the stage for delivering a real recovery for the American people through budget reconciliation. Now, it's important for Democrats to hold the line on passing a bold, inclusive recovery. We can't let Congress water down the bill or use the bipartisan infrastructure deal as an excuse to pack it up and go home. House and Senate Democrats must pass both the infrastructure deal and a bold and inclusive recovery through budget reconciliation. Here's more on this from our co-founder and co-executive director, Leah Greenberg, who joined the Mehdi Hassan Show this week to talk about infrastructure, recovery, and how these things must move together.
You're right to talk about honing in on Manchin and Sinema. Liam, MSNBC caught up with key Democratic swing Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia a couple of hours after the Senate passed this bill, of which he was a key author. Listen to what he had to say.
I'm not surprised. I knew it would happen because I thought when the president took it under his own wing and knew how important this was, it was one of his missions to make sure he could show that he has those bipartisan stripes, and he really does. So when he went out around the country, I knew that we were in a pretty good zone, if you will, and just had to land the plane, that's all.
Manchin's pleased. You can see that on his face there. Sinema's pleased. Some might say McConnell allowing this bill to go through, Leah, and even voting for it himself, was all part of keeping Manchin and Sinema on board with the Republicans and not giving them an excuse to nuke the filibuster. That what looks like a short-term political win for Biden today is really a much longer-term political win for the Republicans, for McConnell, or am I being too cynical?
Well, look, our analysis is that McConnell is moving this forward because he thinks it's going to help him get closer to win over Manchin and Sinema. President Biden's team and congressional leaders are moving it forward because they think it's going to help them build support from Manchin and Sinema for an ambitious reconciliation package. These two things can't both be right. Someone is going to get screwed. The thing that is really crucial right now for Democrats as we're organizing, as progressives are organizing to ensure that we actually pass the full ambitious agenda, is making sure that the bipartisan infrastructure framework is linked and does not move separately from this ambitious reconciliation package that is also being contemplated at the same time.
So we have a lot of work to do. Whether it's democracy reform or passing a real recovery, we need to make it clear to Congress that it's their job to deliver for us. We have the majorities to make it happen. We have the movement to make it happen. So we need to go out there and make it happen. Visit Indivisible.org and call your members of Congress today. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Indivisible Weekly. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and check out the links below for more ways that you can get involved this week. Thanks everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time.